Starto! Heyo everybody! Just me tonight, so hope that you're excited for mediocre commentary. Nah, I hope that'll go well, but probably not as well as some of Mitchell's solos that he's been doing. Definitely check out those VODs before they're gone, and if they're already gone, which they shouldn't be. But if you're watching this in the future of now, be sure to watch those on the YouTube. But yeah, so figured while he's out, that'll give me some good time to be able to actually work on the Coop, the Legend of Coop a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. Overall, it's going to be a chill stream. Like, not really pushing huge entertainment value, if you will. If I happen to be entertaining in the process, then so be it. But overall, I'm sort of going to be treating it more like a, I don't know, what do you want to call it? It's a work in progress, obviously. But, you know, as far as what we're going to be looking at and stuff, I'll be sort of just working on it, but also sort of trying to sort of tutorialize it, you know, in certain ways. So, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. Sorry for the delay as well. I happened to jump in here a little bit late. The dryer was deciding not to actually do its job. So, so I ended up with basically no clothes at the time. They were literally all in the dryer, and they weren't wanting to get dried. So it was like, well, guess I'll stand around until it's done. This is what I get for waiting, I suppose. But the thing is, estimated time. It's like estimated to take a half hour. But in reality, you stick it in there and it takes a whole hour. And it's like, well, I might as well just not even trust technology anymore. Am I right? But yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Yeah, we can go on ahead and switch on over here. So I've been working on it, more or less just like background stuff. I still have like a ton of actual dungeoning to do still, which I feel like is more visually pleasing, if you will, than some of the back end stuff. You can see I have some notes written down here. What I'd like to do tonight is at least finish number 1. That really shouldn't take that long, to be honest. We should absolutely finish number 1 on our list here. Number 2, I might skip over, depending. That requires some sprite work and things, which might be fun, but like it just takes time and is not exactly entertaining to put together. You know, it doesn't really contribute much to the front end until you actually put them to use. So I might work on a couple of them that I know that I'll be wanting to use soon. But we'll probably end up finishing Dungeon 1, which is what we're looking at now, over here. And then for the Overworld 1, this is going to be the map immediately following this one. So essentially, Dungeon 1 is going to be almost like a tutorial. The idea is you know, Coop, are sort of stuck in this prison. You've been imprisoned by a mysterious Dark Lord that thinks that you are a threat. So they wanted to put you in a prison and hold you there. That being said, step 1 for your journey is going to be escape, obviously. But yeah, so you'll just need to escape that. And then once you're out of the prison, that's when it opens up more, to where you will essentially have, much like the original Zelda, but also almost quasi-Zelda, but with some Dark Souls-esque sort of free roam open world. You'll have options to go and do a couple different tasks, so it's still linear, but you have the option to take whichever linear route you want, essentially. And you know, the player might find that they require an item from one dungeon and one part of the map that they haven't gotten yet, you know, and vice versa. Sort of what I picture, and maybe, let me go ahead and actually, I'll pull up Paint and maybe visualize it a bit. Let's see. Oh, it's tiny. Why are you so tiny? It's 13 by 17. Nobody can see that. But what I'm picturing is essentially you'll end up with 4 areas. You'll end up with this area here, over here, over here. My mouse work is amazing, by the way. You'll end up basically with 4 areas. And there'll be one, basically, there will be a town that connects all 4 of those. Essentially, what you'll have, and one thing that will be different in regards to the sort of the difficulty of this, is that going back to town is going to be essential for being able to actually beat some of the dungeons. Either the town will have different items that you can buy, and some of those will have a rotating stock depending on which dungeons that you've completed, as well as potions and things. The availability of healing is going to be fairly uncommon. You know, certain enemies will still drop hearts, but it's not nearly as common as, you know, every Octorok a drop a heart. You know what I mean? So going back to town is going to be very, very important. So essentially the first dungeon, the first prison, if you will, is going to be located in one of these quadrants, and it's going to basically represent one of the sort of needed to complete dungeons, as far as, like, you know, getting the Triforce. You'll end up getting a Triforce from there. Watch this geometrical action. So you'll get one Triforce at the end of the prison. There'll be one more dungeon in this overworld here that also contains a Triforce. So essentially, there's 8 pieces of the Triforce total, which means you effectively end up with each of these 4 regions having 2 individual dungeons associated with them. So that's essentially how I'm thinking of laying it out. I think that'd be a pretty interesting take on it, especially with sort of this town here acting as like the hub between the 4. You know, that'll basically be your, you know, if you want to go between the different places, you'll have to go through town. And while you're in town, that'll give you the option to possibly buy some stuff. And like I said, I want to set it up so that the shop, you know, the stock and stuff in the shops also rotate occasionally, either depending on which dungeons that you've completed or things along those lines. So you'll always want to sort of roam the town, if you will, to see if there's anything new based on your outings, if you will. So, sorry, I feel like I've been rambling. But that's the only way I can really think to explain it, is by rambling. And I am fairly good at that. If you need any evidence of that, go to the YouTube and find the stream where I talked about how placeholders, like the placeholders for 0, just isn't isn't real. That was the dumbest, longest rant of nothing that I can think that we've ever had on the channel. And oh boy, have we had some rants about a whole lot of nothing. Oh goodness. But each one of these overworlds, if you will have a theme. So the first area here is going to be like a forest. It's going to be forested themed. You're going to have another one that's basically mountainy, right? You'll have a mountain themed one. You'll have basically an ocean watery one, right? That just looks like a face. Wow, they... Oh, they all look like faces. Except this one. This one's just the nose. Here, I'll add a little bit of grass. There we go. Okay, so you'll effectively end up with 4 unique sort of geographical areas. And the final one will be a combination, actually. It'll be, where do I... Let me think. I don't know. I haven't quite figured out what I want to do with the last one. I want to do something infuriating, though. So I'm half tempted to do... like, a desert theme, but after you basically cross the desert, it shifts to being like a swamp. Because obviously we need to have a swamp level. You can't have an infuriating game without a swamp level. But that's the other thing. Like, I'm not planning to make this an actual, just like, unfair game. Like, I want it to be a difficult game, but mechanically be a legitimate game. Like, it'd be easy enough to make this a complete just rage fest, but that unto itself is not fun if the player feels as though it's literally stacked against them as far as the game mechanics themselves go. I mean, if you just throw Link into a room with, 8 Dark Nuts right from the start, that makes for an infuriating time, but doesn't make for a fun time, especially starting out early into the game. So it's like, it's sort of finding the balance of like what works to be able to sort of make a fun game. This will be our little town. But that's the general gist of how I want to lay it out. You'll have 4 unique geographical locations, each with 2 individual dungeons. Except for the last one. You'll basically have 1 dungeon in the swamp and then 1 dungeon in the desert portion of that particular region. Obviously, each one of the areas has its like difficult factors, right? You're gonna have to deal with all kinds of garbage at the swamp, obviously. That's going to be one of the harder areas, but if you decided to, you could theoretically go and complete the swamp dungeon right from the start. And that's what I'm saying. It's similar to the Zelda format, where you could basically have open world insofar that you have the right item to complete the dungeon. It's similar to that, but more along the lines of how Dark Souls plays off sort of their open world, where it's more of like just a connected world, and you have a couple of options to sort of follow, sort of like linear goals, if you will. So that's sort of what I'm looking to do, as far as how the game itself, in its totality, is sort of wrapped up. But then the actual final dungeon, if you will, is actually going to be the Dark Lord's Castle, which is going to be located in the town. You'll have access to it right from the start, but much like the final dungeon in the NES title, you'll have to have all of the Triforce pieces in order to access that. And if you don't, then you're pretty much just out of luck and you can't progress. So while you'll have access to it right from the start, like, it'll be obvious and big, where this final thing's at, but whether you want to do that or not is questionable at best. Because A, it's going to be very, very hard, and then B, you really have to have all 8 of the Triforce shards. So yes, that's a nice little diagram, though. I'll leave that up we might reference that again here in a little bit, just for the sake of the laughs, if you will. But yeah, now that we've sort of gone through the essentials, this here's our editing pane. This is where you can see the full dungeon and everything here. You can see sort of a little mini map here. That's, you know, what we've edited of it so far. As you can see, the dungeon of Coopin is just a big C. A lot of the enemies and everything in the areas are very basic and sort of easy, if you will. However, the goal for this dungeon in particular, especially coming from the perspective of Mitchell playing this, he has not played the first NES title. The only Zelda game I'm aware that he's played, actually, is Breath of the Wild. So this is going to be a bit different for him. You know what I mean? And that being said, since it is going to be different, I want to sort of showcase essentially all of the different unique challenges that he might come across later on. It's going to be definitely puzzle filled, and then it's going to have a little bit of each enemy type, you know, from your Dark Nut to your simple keys, you know, as well as a couple unique enemies. Again, going back to step 2, I want to add a lot of different unique enemies to this. You know, be it just because they're just interesting and I just wanted to add something, or whether it be directly CoopCouch related, if you will. There's certain high-profile characters, for example, you know, that would be great to add. Jar Billy, for example. He might make an appearance at some point, most likely as a boss. But yeah, that'd be cool to sort of throw some of that in there. But yeah, so to sort of review by room real quick, just for the sake of it, I've already started this and have most of it done. You'll start in this room. Immediately, you'll see that there are two chests in this room. One of them is a good one. One of them is a mimic. I had spoken to one of our followers about adding mimics and how that would just be such a brutal thing to add for a Zelda game. And lo and behold, I decided to actually follow through with that because I love mimics. But essentially, so how the mimics work, the mimics actually have logic similar to, the Armos Knights. So essentially, you touch them and then they become active. However, with the normal chests, you have to approach from the south to open them. But the thing is, if you know how this game works and how the Armos work, oh, what you got? No! No! Spoilers! No! No, it's fine. I haven't actually gotten into it too far yet, so you're good. Oh no! But I mean, yeah, you're welcome to stick around. But do be mindful. There are going to definitely be spoilers. But what? Goodbye. No. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see. That did actually confirm something. For some reason, our chat box had been disabled. So that was actually good. Yeah, thank you, because now I can actually fix that and move that over here. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Well, yeah, no, that's good. Here, if you're still here, I actually have a diagram of how the game's going to be laying out. Yeah, I have a diagram of how the game's going to be laid out, and it's very impressive. But I was essentially saying... Yeah, I was essentially saying you'll have 4 different geographical areas and sort of a hub town that you will return to. There'll be 8 Triforce shards, or whatever I'm going to rebrand them to be, if you will. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool, I think. That being said, we are currently looking at the first dungeon, and like I was saying earlier, like I want to make the game legitimate, because it'd be easy enough to just throw you at something and make it just infuriating. Like that's easy, but I want to make it like the gameplay itself good. You know what I mean? I want to make the gameplay itself the challenge and not the scenario, because that's just infuriating. You know, I can just stick you in a room with, spike shards everywhere or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like good gameplay. Yeah. No, like yeah. I want to make it as a legitimate thing. And that being said, it's going to be difficult. I will say it's going to be difficult. The first dungeon, not so much. Because I'm treating the first dungeon like a tutorial, especially for you, since you haven't really played a game like this before. I feel like that's going to be more or less necessary. So, essentially, the first dungeon is going to be just a sweet summary of most of the stuff to come, if you will. Basically, just smaller challenges of different degrees. That sort of focus on different, different aspects that you'll be running across, later, that are a bit more involved, as opposed to this, of course. Much appreciate. Oh yeah. I was going to say, I don't know how much you want spoiled, but I could go ahead and do a test run if you wanted. Unless you just want me to keep chatting. I mean, I'm good to keep chatting if you just want to chat. Well, I don't want to spoil too much. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Oh, gotta go. Okay, bye. Bye-zo. But, yeah, thanks for stopping by. But yeah, so sort of taking a look, this is our starting screen. We'll move forward. You'll have a dude talk to you. Get the wooden sword. Right now, all of the text prompts are just temporary. I just put them as temp, just for the sake of making it easier to test. There will be dialogue, and oh boy. This particular NPC, it's going to be an interesting one. He's basically going to just, roast the player right from the start. And if you proceed directly north of that, you'll actually encounter a shop where, the same guy is selling the stuff. And he'll basically roast you depending on your purchases. Like, you can actually buy heart containers from this guy, and he'll make note of that. And say how much of a wimp you are, more or less. Also, the shields will mock you if you buy a shield. So, yeah, this NPC is going to be a pretty fun one. The other thing, and one thing that is both I wouldn't necessarily say a bug, but an unintentional sort of side effect is that you could theoretically buy unlimited number of heart containers from this guy, assuming you have the money to do so. Because every time that he resets, his heart container purchase also resets. That being said, to get 100 rupees in this dungeon is going to be somewhat difficult. I have it set currently to where you'll find enough treasure in the dungeon to basically get 100 hearts. But it depends on whether you decide to spend it on that, or if you buy a shield, or if you use it for something later on in the dungeon that you actually pick up that requires rupees. So, and going back, so the mimic in this room, he actually respawns indefinitely, which means in theory, you could just keep killing him and have a chance to get rupees. That is slow and tedious because mimics are fairly difficult to fight. And because of that, not exactly worth the time, I would argue. Simply because it would just take so much. It takes so many tries because while they have a chance to like, they have a rare chance to drop, they have a very rare chance to drop, like, really expensive rupees. It's like basically 1% chance to drop 200. So you might be at that for a while. You're more likely to get, you know, your 5 rupees or even 1 rupee, as opposed to the 1% chance for 200, or even the 2% chance for 100. We're operating on some old school RuneScape figures here as far as our drop table. So while the mimics, you could grind the mimic and get basically unlimited gold, it would just take way longer than what you'd want to actually theoretically do. I mean, at 1%, I mean, that's, you know, that's a lot of kills right there. Got some Slayer right there. You gotta train your Slayer up. But anyway, going back, so you'll have the sword by this time. You'll proceed left. You'll encounter 2 Dark Nuts. I feel like that's a good first challenge, because the Dark Nuts themselves are a harder enemy in this, and because of that, I feel like it would be a good way to learn, well, some of the more difficult enemy mechanics, so, you know, having to hit them from the side or the back, and also learn how the sword and everything works, and sort of gauging the distance, because that's essential to fighting pretty much any enemy in this, if you will. So once you kill the 2 Dark Nuts, you'll proceed north. The shutter door will open. There'll be a key. I do have dark rooms in this dungeon, because in this first room here, we have our mimic. In this box here, this is the mimic. Over here, actually, is a candle. I'll give the player the blue candle right from the start. I feel like that's just a nice utility bit that they might as well just have right from the start, honestly. So you'll go to the Dark Nut room. You'll proceed up north to this room, which has a key, assuming that you defeat the enemies in this room. There's 1 Gibdo. I feel like that's a decent challenge. You just have a couple of Zols and a Gibdo. I feel like the Gibdo is a good challenge because it does 2 hearts of damage. So that's a good example of, it's just an enemy that has a bunch of health that I just have to really be careful getting too close to. It's not inherently difficult, but it could be like definitely like a learning curve for somebody that hasn't learned the distances yet. With this, once you have the key, you'll go back south, of course. The Dark Nuts will be gone. They'll only respawn if either you leave the dungeon, but this dungeon's only like a 1-shot. You'll never come back to this dungeon. But if you die, they'll also respawn. But assuming that you have the key, you can unlock this. You can just run past them the next time. And I have a couple of sort of... This dungeon has a couple of boss chambers, if you will. This is basically your first, like, boss. You know, you'll have to get the key, get through them. And then moving on, we just have a couple of just, like, basic encounters. You have a split path here. Where you can either go, you know, left or up, more or less. Both of the paths lead to the same, like, destination. So you'll either continue that way or you'll continue down this way and then to the left. So this is going to be an interesting bit here, because this here is actually a moving floor. But yeah, you can sort of see it by the animation. So this would be a really important one later on, especially in the the desert area. There will be a lot of instances where you'll have moving floor like this. And let me see, I might actually, for the sake of making it, yeah, because I think that would be better. Yeah, there we go. because there will be a lot of instances where you'll have moving floors later on. You can also see down here, I have a couple of enemies that I added. That'd be nice little challenges or nice little sort of rest bits, if you will. So you could either, go through this one. This will take you to sort of the next sort of challenge room. You'll have another new enemy, but this is one of the test example enemies from the ZQuest program itself. I feel like that's actually a really good example that they put together for this. But definitely plan to use it because it's awesome. That and just some skeletons. You'll defeat those, or down here, if you chose to do the south path, you'll encounter this room. This little guy here, he'll be important later. Once you have a certain item that you can hit this guy with, because once you hit this guy, then these blocks behind him will disappear, and then you'll be able to get a rupee. So, moving on, you'll get the key and everything. At that point, this door here will be open. It's a shutter door. It'll be open once the enemies are done. Or you can proceed directly north using the key. The intended path, although not the required path, is to go through the shutter door first. You'll see you'll come across some more Zols. You'll go north. You'll encounter some Tektites. I feel like those are a decent challenge because just of how hectic they are to fight sometimes. Also, it will explain, or it will introduce bombs, which will be important later. If you've noticed along the path, there's actually bombable walls pretty much everywhere in this dungeon. So, if the player figures out that they can bomb, then they could have been doing it, pretty much any time after this. Unless they already got a bomb drop. I did leave the dark nuts and stuff in the Gibdo with the bomb drop. So the player might already have bombs before this, but they will guaranteed to get bombs after this encounter with the Tektites. Proceeding north. This here is another chest. This is actually just rupees. And if they get the chest here and the other room, that will guarantee that they have 100. So by the end of this dungeon, you should have at least gotten, or you would have had the ability to buy at least one heart container by the end of the dungeon. Moving north, a bunch of enemies in here. This is going to be basically another respite, or possibly a very, very bad encounter, depending on if the players figured out the pattern that these mushroom guys work on. Proceeding north again, we have another sort of challenge room, but the challenge is much warranted because the item that you get after this encounter is very much good. It will be an item that you will likely use for most of the game, honestly. So you'll defeat the enemies in here. You'll be like, oh, wait a minute. The door didn't open. I defeated all the enemies. What gives? This block here, it is a push block. You'll push that, it unlocks the door. You'll proceed north, and you'll get the weapon boomerang. However, I repurposed the boomerang because I didn't want the boomerang in this. Boomerang makes no sense for CoopCouch because at what point have we ever used a boomerang? I've repurposed all of the boomerangs to be throwing knives. So, so you'll acquire throwing knives from this room, which functions similarly to the boomerang. However, they will not return. They'll not fly out and then come back like the boomerang would. They instead just fly straight out, and instead of the boomerang where it's like they just stun enemies, the throwing knives actually deal damage, but at the cost of 1 rupee, similar to how the bow and arrow does. So, while, the throwing knives are just better, I would say, just simply because they do damage. But at the same time, you know, there is a cost to that, because that would be a little overpowered if the player could just have unlimited throwing knives. So the throwing knives operate similarly to how the bow does, where you have, you know, sort of a limited sort of ammo cache that you have to pull from. And that gets to the point where you essentially have to decide whether you value using the throwing knives more. Because at this point, you will have already acquired 50 or more rupees, which you could use at the shop. But do you want to spend all that and then not have as much use for the throwing knives? Like, you won't have as many uses. Or do you want to just save up those rupees, you know, just not use the throwing knives and just operate off that? You know what I mean? So already you can sort of see sort of the gears of this initial dungeon. It makes you sort of question and words. It makes you question what your priorities sort of are and what your goal should be, if you will. Because the other thing is, I mean, you could theoretically not even come across this at all, which would make the rest of this dungeon extremely hard if you did skip this area. But it is a possibility. So say you do decide to go north, you'll basically have a couple of encounters. This room here is more or less room here is basically the tutorial for bombable walls. You can sort of see, oh, everything's spiked off, like I'm not supposed to go there, except there's like this one little walkway leading to this wall. What's that about? So in theory, even if you didn't go through this shutter initially, you might still loop back to this room. You might loop back to this room anyway, just simply because, you know, you might have figured out the bombable wall if you have bombs at that point. And I'm thinking I might change this drop. I might change this drop to something else. I'm thinking maybe I'll make this the map. Because if I make this the map, I can make something else. I can make like this room drop bombs. Because in theory, yeah, you would need bombs prior to getting... You'd basically need bombs prior to making this decision. Because if you did proceed north and didn't have bombs, you wouldn't know that bombs even exist and that you can blow this up. Instead, you would have to go and fight the Tektites, which are in the other path. Yeah, so I'm gonna change that. Let me do that actually. Map. Magic book. Map. It's the map. It's the map. It's the map. It's the map. Alright, so we'll make that the map. And then we'll add a drop here. We'll add a drop here for bombs. Normal bombs. we'll have that drop just show up right there. Actually, no, let's center that up. We'll center that. So we'll add that. That'll basically put us to where, unless the player went to the south path here, then they would, in theory, get this bomb. Like, there's very few enemies in this room. I feel like the player would or should defeat those enemies without running past. And even if they did choose this path, I feel like because of the location of this, just because of the location of this and how it connects to the other one, I feel like the player would be interested enough to where they'd be like, oh, I can walk up this. Let me just like walk up and see what's up here, you know? So I feel like it connects well enough to work. And I was also debating, I don't want these in here. I want to switch those out for a couple of, what are they called? Not the pea hats. Oh, levers. That's what they're called. I want to switch out that for a couple of levers because I feel like the levers will be a good. Because that's a whole nother enemy type that I would like to address. So let's actually do that. We'll switch these out for a couple of levers instead. Because yeah, the levers are a tricky enemy type if you don't know about their pattern and such. So, well actually, plus thematically it works. You know, you have sort of these shifting sort of dirt and debris. I feel like the levers would make for a decent thematical encounter as well for this particular bit. Okay, so we've done that. We have the bomb there that you can access. This here. We have the map here. I'm debating. I had this set up as the heart. I'm thinking of switching that out to the compass, honestly. I knew that I wanted to put a item in here. And I wasn't sure what it was, so I just put a heart just for as a placeholder for the time being. So this would be we'll have the compass in this room. That'd be a nice drop. Enemies implies item. Hold up, item falls from ceiling. This should also be the same. Yep. Let's go back to our bomb room because I did not change those. We'll hold up the bombs, indicating that's a significant item, and the items will fall from the ceiling. So, that looks good, that looks good. We just have a couple of basic encounters leading up to this room. That'd be a decent challenge between this room. This here, you didn't get to see yet, but what you'll need, well, since I already explained the throwing knives, what you have to do is throw a throwing knife at that thing's eye, and it basically becomes deactivated, and it makes these blocks disappear, so you can access that rupee. So that's pretty much it. Just a couple more Zol rooms. Nothing too out of the ordinary. This particular dungeon, I have it to where the dark rooms aren't really that dark. I felt like throwing actual dark rooms right at the player from the start would be a little bit of a tricky one if they don't really remember to use the candle and whatnot. So it's almost like half dark, where it's like it's basically just dimmed. To just explain that dark rooms are a thing, without it being like too intrusive right off the bat. Keys, bat. I don't know. That's essentially what we have now. I actually like that this is the map. I feel like this is actually a really cool room to get the map into. So, but yeah, we'll have the bombs there. Proceeding up, so from here we proceed up. This here is actually a darker room because I wanted it to be dark enough to where it would obscure the spikes. You actually won't be able to tell that this is a spiked room until you use the candle. It'll just look like possibly like water tiles or like just like a flat something. Like you won't be able to even tell that these are spikes in this particular room. You'll continue to proceed north. You'll have sort of a water encounter room. And that's a good point. Let me sort of discuss sort of how like normal like Zelda dungeons work as far as like game like room like wise. Because there's a couple of like there's basically a few different like layouts that most rooms have. You'll either have just like a normal, just like empty room square bit with enemies or whatever, you know? You'll basically have a square room with challenging enemies, and your goal is to just defeat them, right? You then have a room type that is similar to that, but it's like a water room. So you have water that separates the room into segments, or just adds to the challenge of the room. just simply because the room itself is split up. However, that is both a good and a bad thing for Link here, or Mr. Coops, as he's going to be in this game. Because it does give you the option to sort of maneuver yourself to where you can guaranteed to hit the enemy, but they can basically not hit you at all. You know, if you approach, from the south, obviously. One moment. I need to take this call. Duty calls, and I respond. Alrighty then. We should hopefully be back now. Power decided to blip on me, so that's always fun. A little bit of technical issue. Granted, hate it when a technical issue happens. That is completely out of my control. Such is the case. So, not only did I have to take a work call, which was the original reason I cut, then the power decided to go bleep, and yeah, that's fun. It's the unexpected bits of streaming, you know, such as it is. Need a backup generator or something. Just like, it's a backup generator, just power the Wi-Fi. Granted, wouldn't really work considering the Wi-Fi is tied into everything else. But as long as we're still good, and it looks like we're still good, I'll go ahead and shift back over to our stuff here. And there we go, we're back. What I left off, I was explaining the different room types in Zelda games, like the typical room types. So essentially you have just a normal room, just a normal empty room with enemies, right? You know, you defeat all the enemies, boom jam. You have the water type room where you basically have a maze of water and you have to maneuver around and fight the enemies that way. That's actually a really good, like, I love rooms like that because it allows you to sort of strategize about how you want to take the enemies out. Like, you know, the keys, you know, they are what they are. But with the Gibdos, for example, the Mr. Mummies there, if you could catch them on this lip here, you're essentially guaranteed to defeat them. All you have to do is just hit them across the water. Makes for a really easy enemy to dispatch that would otherwise be a more difficult enemy. The same goes for Dark Nuts. If I were to put a Dark Nut in this room, the player would say, oh, well, it's so much easier to fight it if I'm standing here as opposed to over there. So I feel like this is a good room to sort of teach sort of the strategic thinking of how the rooms are laid out. Because the challenge with Zelda games in general is not so much the enemies. The enemies have a challenge, right? So you have enemies are a challenge, but the environment is either more so a challenge or can help you limit the challenge enemies pose. So essentially that's more or less how the Zelda sort of game logic works. Like, enemies are a challenge, but you know, some enemies shouldn't be underestimated because of the environment that they have to be placed in, or enemies that would otherwise be too difficult under normal circumstances would actually be far easier depending on the environment. So that's definitely a good way to do to sort of lay that out. Is, you know, in this room, you know, since there's water and the player can maneuver around it and actually use it as an advantage, these Gibdo, who would normally be a more difficult challenge at this point in the game, are rendered more or less useless, just given the properties of the room. Whereas the 6 Stalfos in this room you don't even have to complete. The only thing you get is the compass, which is a nice thing to pick up, but not required to complete this dungeon whatsoever. So, you know, the player's rewarded if they beat this room, but they don't have to beat this room. You know, and even then, these Stalfos are normally not really that challenging an enemy. Stalfos are fairly easy. But given that, A, these statues actually shoot, and B, you have these spike traps. You have the spike traps. That increases the level of challenge that the Stalfos themselves pose. Similar to how we have this set up here. This room, or these two rooms really, are going to be more challenging given the nature of the room and not so much the enemies involved in the room, if that makes sense. So there's a couple of different logics behind why that works. You know, as far as the best way I can put it is like Dungeons and Dragons. Think enemies have like a challenge rating, right? And that, you know, depending on how challenging you want the encounter, you'll change, you know, what enemies you involve in it, or change what traps you even involve in it. Because all of those have a certain challenge rating that they are, you know, that is recommended to be at, you know? So, that's the best way I can put it is, you know, the enemies can be challenging, but the environment that the enemies show up in pose pretty much an equal, if not more, hardy challenge in most cases than the enemies themselves. Like I said, the water rooms pretty much mitigate most, you know, foot mobile enemies. Whereas, you know, you take a room like I have a good example here. Take a room like this where, oh, that's so much smaller. What happened? No, the size of the thing, no. But you take a room like that where you basically have what I'd like to call like the bunker design, where you basically have it such that you have to funnel enemies through a corridor, right? Like, that makes it pretty difficult, especially for things, you know, like the Dark Nuts, where you are limited on how you can actually fight them. You know, you essentially have corridors that the enemies have to run through. So you basically are limited to where you can really fight them. You basically have to get them on the edges. Fighting them in the corridors is almost guaranteed death, depending on the enemy type. Granted, this early on, easy enemies. Don't have to worry about that. But, you know, if you did take, you know, Dark Nuts or, you know, even other challenging stuff, that would make this room significantly harder, even if you only had 2 or 3 Dark Nuts in it. You know, an open room with Dark Nuts is a challenge. But a corridor with a few Dark Nuts is probably just as much a challenge. So, yeah, I feel like this is really just me, like, I'm working on this, sort of theorizing about the game, but, what do you call them? It more or less is like it's a tutorial / game, what's a good way to put it? Basically just like game design 101, if you will. I've always been fascinated when it comes to like different game design and things like that. So sort of the logic behind some of these makes sense if you sort of break them down into their components, right? But you know, you take other rooms. I mean that's really essentially the room designs that you can expect out of a Zelda game, more or less. You have open rooms. Well, you have the open rooms. You also have like the semi like bunker design where you might have like a couple of blocks here and there, maybe like a couple in the middle or whatever. You know what I mean? Something similar. I mean, that's a bit more bunker, but something more similar to like this that sort of just splits the room up. Or even something like this, where it's only a couple of blocks. I would say that this, challenge-wise, is very similar, if not makes it slightly easier, honestly. having a room like this, you have some blocks that you can use sort of as exploits, as opposed to a fully open room. So I would say, as far as difficulties go, I would essentially put from, hardest to easiest. Your corridor rooms are going to be your hardest ones. Your open rooms, definitely second hardest. Granted, depending on what enemies, but assuming it is most normal enemies, the open design is going to be number 2 as far as the difficulty goes. Your room like this, probably going to be a 3 as far as the difficulty. Simply because, like I said, it's similar to the open floor concept, but it does give you a few blocks that you can use as exploits. Like I said, this room here in particular, you can basically get dark nuts trapped behind this, and you can just wallop on them like all day, as opposed to the open floor design where you and the enemy both have full access to the entire space. And then finally, I would say 4 is going to be your water rooms. Those are fairly exploitable in general. You take this room here, for example. You essentially have it such that you can basically get enemies stuck along like entire lips, around corners, and you have many different ways that you can take them out. You can just hit them across the water, for example. So I feel like this is a good way to have difficult enemies, but lower the difficulty of those enemies, just simply because of the nature of how you can just smack stuff with a sword. But I hope that you like my diagrams here, and they totally make sense. But yeah, anyway, so that's basically Zelda Room Design 101. Is basically how to determine your challenge rating. I mean, if you're putting into like D&D terms, what is the challenge rating of the encounter? The environment plays a huge role in that, but the enemies themselves play a role in that. But I would argue in most cases, that the environment is going to be what determines the true difficulty of an encounter. Because, you take a room full, like I said, take a room full of dark nuts, like this, where it's just room of enemies. That's a very difficult encounter versus, one of these water style ones where you essentially have, infinite numbers of exploits that you could possibly use to dispatch them. The only way that you'd really get taken out here in this particular one, if this were dark nuts, which it's not, but if this room were dark nuts, the only way that you'd really get killed or take damage would be if you happen to like hug one of these outer walls and basically got Pac-Man'd. Like, that would be the only way, is if you just got Pac-Man'd in this room. In any other circumstance, this room would be an easy room as far as your enemies that are involved in it. And like I said, being that it's only 2 Gibdo in this room plus some keys, that's a fairly low challenge encounter right here. Moving on past this one, I wanted to have this one be a little bit easier, sort of a rest bit. Plus the Gibdo can give some resources that help in the room later. This is going to be another one of the challenge rooms. You're going to have a 4-way trap, plus you have 2 dark nuts and one of the harder dark nuts. The harder one I have marked as the room leader, which means if he dies, then the other 2 automatically die. But the likelihood that they'll take him out first is a bit more unlikely, just simply because he's a bit harder and a little faster in some cases. So he's definitely a challenge, but if they take him out first, which they might choose the harder target first, then you essentially have, you've cleared this room. And that should also be noted for this room here with the Stalfos combo here. If you take out the what are they called? The axe dudes from 2. They just called axe. What were they called? Oh, what were they called? Just axe lizardmen? Oh, okay. Darias. There you go. There you go. Yeah, Darias. You basically take the Daria. If you take the Daria out in this room, then the Stalfos also go away. So these challenge rooms, I have pretty much all of the challenge rooms set up like that. You take out the team leader, and the other ones clear out too. Just to cut down on the difficulty a little bit, but not if the player doesn't really take the leader out first. And again, this is a hard encounter. You take 2 dark nuts plus one of the harder dark nuts, stick them in a room where you can't really hug the outer wall because of the 4-way traps. Because of that, you essentially have, that much less space that's really operable space. You know what I mean? And that's another good way to put it. And I don't necessarily have to explain it here. But there are certain ways that you can make an encounter more challenging too in that regard. Where, you basically take a space and make it smaller without really making it smaller. Going back to the spike room here with the bats, the keys. You essentially have all of this space as usable space, but in reality, you can't use the space, if that makes sense. So, and that's essentially what you've done in this room as well by having the 4-way traps. You've essentially made it to where your usable space for you is shorter, but the enemies still have access to the full space. So effectively, you've given the enemy an advantage that the player doesn't have. Thus making it more difficult. But that being said, so that's pretty much where we're at. I have a couple more puzzles and stuff planned for this. The boss is going to be here, of course. Going back to this room for a second. You can see I have 2 locked doors, but there's only 1 key. That's intentional design. I'll have another bomb hint in one of these rooms to combine the 2 rooms, more or less. You can bomb any of these, is the plan. But I'll have one that's spelled out a bit more, easily, if you will. In case the player happens to not know that. So they'll still be able to connect, assuming that the player still has bombs and hasn't used them all. And if they have used them all, they might have to go grind some enemies in order to get the other ones. But at this point, the player should have enough bombs, and I'll probably end up giving bombs in one of these routes. I'll have, what do you call them? One of the routes will be the boss key, and the other route will have, I'll have to put some thought into that. I might actually connect the last room here just with a door. That way the player has access to both of the routes. Guaranteed, because you don't want to get it to where all of the enemies that could drop bombs are dead, and then you end up with no way to actually do it, because that would put you in a basically game locked position, because you would basically be stuck at that point. There wouldn't be any more enemies that could drop bombs, so you'd be out of bombs. How do you get from one route to the other if it's a required route? You just have to. You have to have a way to be able to do that. But so yeah, that's how we'll do that. It still adds to the difficulty of it, because depending on which of these 2 routes that you take, either the north or the right path there, you'll be faced with different challenges. Plus, if there's a puzzle in this room, for example, but you've unlocked this door, you essentially have to go all the way like all the way back to here, or like all the way down this hallway, and then loop back north in order to get to this puzzle. So I feel like that's still, even if it's an opening here without bombing it, that'd still be enough of a challenge to have to loop all the way back through, if that makes sense. So I feel like that should work out okay. Yeah, we'll leave that as is. Alright, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and just for the sake of it, we'll go ahead and run what we have so far up to this challenge room. And we'll go from there. One other thing, I changed some values when I was testing just for the sake of ease. Let's see, we'll want to go, why is it not? Oh, here we go. We don't want to start with that, and we don't want to start with, any rupees. So we'll go ahead, do that, go ahead and save. And we'll go ahead and get into it. Sorry if that was a lot of talking right from the start. But I feel like it's necessary to be able to explain sort of what we got going on so far. Alright, so first and foremost, you get that, you get the candle. Might as well burn a keys while we're at it. This mimic here, you touch him, he'll activate like an Armos. You've got Mr. Man here. Like I said earlier, I have it set to where he'll just like roast the player like the whole time. If you go north, he has a shop where you can buy stuff, but like he'll roast you and whatnot, like depending on what you buy. Like he'll make fun of you if you just buy the shield. like it's great. But yeah, that's pretty neat. If you, like I said, these follow the same logic as the Armos, which means if you approach them from the south, then you'll take damage. Like you'll get hit right from the start, like the Armos do. With the Mimics, I currently have their damage set to 3, which means this Mimic can actually kill us in one hit if we approach it from the wrong angle. Yeah. So yeah, if we approach the Mimic from the south with 3 hearts, then we instantly die. And I did that intentionally because the Mimic also shares the trait that the, what are they called? The likes, right? The things that eat your shield. They share that quality. They can eat the player's item. So if you get hit by a Mimic, you take 3 hearts of damage and you have one of your items stolen, which means if you had a shield, your shield's gone. Like, it eats your shield. That being said, as long as you're on 3 hearts, if you have the shield and do end up getting eaten by the Mimic, you don't lose your item because it counts your death before it counts the item being eaten. Which means it's sort of a safeguard for the early player. Like, if the player decides to buy the shield right now, comes back, doesn't know about the Mimic, and then gets eaten, the player just, like, won't be lost. Like, the player wouldn't have lost 25 rupees right from the start. Like, that would be annoying at best. So, yeah, we currently have it set up to where it's a little bit more fair in that regard. So, yeah. Gotti. Well, like I said, the Mimic has a very, very rare chance of dropping good loot. Like, he dropped 10 rupees that time, which I think is like a 10% drop rate, so... Ooh, watch out for the mans here. Ooh, watch out for the mans. But like I said, this, I feel like, is a decent, like, first challenge encounter, because it allows the player to have to, like, figure out how to fight the enemies. And the Dark Nuts, I would argue, are some of the mechanically harder enemies as far as the Zelda games go. Simply because you have to fight them a very specific way. That being said, once you do get the throwing knives later on, the throwing knives actually do affect the dark nuts, as long as you hit them in the back. So if you hit the dark nut with the throwing knife in the back, it actually stuns it, which I feel like is a fair way of dealing with them. Like, I wanted this first encounter to be like difficult, simply for sort of the I don't know, I wouldn't say shock value, if you will, but definitely sort of the shock value, yeah. Where it's like, what? This is the first room? Oh, goodness. But yeah. What do you call them? Plus, like I said, the Mimic pretty much respawns indefinitely, so eventually if you did keep grinding out the Mimic, you could get money, but generally it's not worth it. I just like to do it just because it's kind of fun. Gotti. Hey, 5 rupees. Gotta buy nothing. But, alright, well, let's take it serious and, like, actually beat these Arc Nuts. Ooh, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. There we go. There we go. Hey, and he dropped some money. Perfect. Alright. So, like I said, this is a dark room, but I went with a lighter tile set as far as how the dark room affects it, which means that you can still basically see. I didn't want to throw the player into a dark room, like, without having any prior knowledge, and expect them to, like, know what's going on. That being said, the candle's a nice fix for that. Go ahead and do that. And got the key. We got ourselves a key, which means that we can go back into the Dark Nut room. Now there's no Dark Nuts. And we can go ahead and proceed to the dungeon. Got it. Oh, garbage. Didn't spin around quite fast enough that time. That's okay. Ouch, 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 ouch. Fire! Got it. But, so that's a new enemy right there that I came up with. The gist of it is, it acts like, what do you call them? It acts like the Zols, like the big Zol. In that it splits up when it dies. However, they have a very high chance of dropping hearts and such. So it's worth fighting them when you need hearts, but it's a risk because if they do hit you, it actually, you lose control of your character. Which means not only do you like move randomly or attack randomly, but you will automatically switch your inventory and use items. Which means you could unintentionally, while fighting those, switch to the bomb and put a bomb down and blow yourself up. Which would be highly unfortunate. So those are a more risky enemy to fight. Oh yeah, I forgot I changed these guys to, that's an enemy that I've been working on. I need to change it. It needs to have less health. Yeah, it's a little enemy I like to call Flamey. Actually, let me go ahead and change that. It's an enemy called Flamey that I went ahead and added, because I thought that would be pretty interesting. More or less, it's just a very fast, annoying thing. I upped its health. Where's that? Where's that? Fire, Flamey. Hello, Flamey. I upped its health. I kind of want to like change it back to where it's like basically a 2-hit. You hit it twice instead. Yeah, look at that little dude. Look at that little dude. He's a little fireman. But yeah, I feel like even if the player went south here, they would still be inclined to see this and be like, oh, can I climb up this? And it's like, oh, I can climb up this. Okay, cool. So I feel like that's a pretty decent way of sort of combining that little section. It incentivizes the player to like, oh jeez, oh jeez, oh jeez, oh jeez, oh jeez. Okay, there we go. But yeah, these guys are generally worth fighting, and I have quite a bit of these in this first dungeon. They'll be a bit rarer later on, but they more or less represent a way to like restock on stuff without it being like just free, without it being free health and whatnot, if you will. You know what I mean? Oh geez, oh geez, oh geez. And I have it to where they respawn as well in this dungeon in particular. Ooh, ow. see what I mean? The environment is the challenge sometimes. Oh goodness. Alright, so continuing on. We don't have to worry about these dark nuts because we've already cleared this room. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Oh. Yep. Oh, excuse me. Garbage. I think I need to change the sensitivity on the controller thing that I have here. So I have an app that affects or changes the key inputs so that this controller will work, but it's sometimes not all that reliable. Got-y! Ah. No! No, 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 no! Ah, got it. Oh, no! Oh, goodness. Let's see, I won't fight you. But as you can see, like, it'd take a number of tries to effectively, like, figure out the controls and everything. Like, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out half of them too myself. Granted, I've played this game far too many times, but the way that ZQuest does it is slightly different. You can see, for example, the sword is a swing instead of a stab. That's something specific to ZQuest that I quite like, but it does make it to where, like, you over-rely on the swing, but the swing is not all that effective, to be honest. Like, it's good, but it's like almost like a false safety sometimes, where you can put too much emphasis on the swing, and remember that most of your hit is still like right in front of you, like the stab would be. So that does make it a little awkward sometimes. Oh, hello. Oh, wow. Got him. Alright, so we'll come into here. This is going to be another challenge room. As long as we kill Mr. Blue there, then the other guys will disappear, because he's the ringleader here. He's the boss. Oh! Ouch. I forgot. Yeah, the Daria things. The blue one, he does 3 hearts of damage by himself, so you do not want to be in front of him. And again, it's an example of, like, learning the enemies, because if you try to fight the Dark Nuts normally, like a normal enemy, and just hit them a bunch, like, you're not going to do it. You're not going to beat it. The same goes for the Daria guys. If you happen to get in front of them, you're pretty much dead, because they have it's technically a ranged attack that they do with the axe. Like, it's a right in front of them ranged attack, basically. Which, it does a lot of damage if it hits, but as long as you stay away from him, or get behind him, you know what I mean, then he's less likely to hit you. Plus, with the swing, you can actually hit tiles and such that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So that also makes it to where you have a little bit more, like, give as far as where you have to be. Because, like, I can hit that enemy diagonal on the tile that I'm standing on. So just remembering that as well. Like, the enemies like the Darios, they will move in a straight line. You're guaranteed to be able to, if you can get them walking this direction, and you're here, you can just go to town, because you can hit them diagonal. And the Tektite room. Got him. Alright, yes. Ah, garbage, and then I take damage immediately. Go ahead and pick up the map. So the way that the map works, well, you can see that the map's there, of course. But, okay, so it doesn't update here. I'll have to see if there's a way to do that. Because while we do have the traditional map here, there's also an additional function of ZQuest where you can pull up the map, like the maps, like directly, and like actually view them as they actually are, which I think is a really cool feature, especially in a complex like layout like this where you have, you know, all of these different rooms connecting and such. Like, assuming that you actually go to those rooms, then you can see. But I'm pretty sure there's a way to where you pick the map up, and it automatically shows all this too. I'll have to see. Actually, let me think. I always forget that I have this pulled up at the same time as everything else. Dungeon to Coopin. Oh, let's see. Appearance. No. Maps. Map. No. There's a way to do it. I think I'm gonna have to have like a specific script though. I don't think it's something that's default. I don't think it's something in here by default. No. Well, that's too bad. I'll suppose probably wouldn't be under. What do you call them here? No. No. Alright, that's something I'll have to look into. Yep, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to switch back to this. Yeah, that's something I'll have to look into though, because there's a way to do it, I would think. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'll put a bomb there. Like I said, pretty much all of the rooms in this particular dungeon. And like I said, these enemies here, if they're heading towards you in a straight line, as long as you're standing diagonal of them, they're really easy to deal with. This is free money that you can use either to buy a heart piece, or you can use it to get the, what do you call them? Use them for the throwing knives here in a minute. Let's throw a flame out here. So this room, you think, oh, this would be an easy room because there's just these guys. But in reality, you could pretty much end up with far more than you can actually deal with if you're not careful. And you could either get really lucky like this, where you happen to have all of them just stacked on each other, which is great. But unfortunately, that usually doesn't end up like that, if we're being honest. It usually ends up with you surrounded and absolutely dead. Alright. So we got those. So we have some more Darias, and we have a single Dark Nut. Like I said, this is the example where you want to exploit the... what do you call them? Oh, that's interesting. They didn't stop when I picked the clock up. Because when you hit the clock... Huh. Yeah, when you hit the clock, you're invincible. But, huh. I'll have to look up why, or I'll have to edit some stuff to make sure that they stop when the clock is active. But yeah, that's a push block. We'll have a temp, and we will acquire the throwing knives. These function similarly to the boomerang, except they deal damage and they only go outward. They don't actually return to you. But they're very, very handy because it allows you to stun enemies and such, like the boomerang would. But with just added utility because you also deal damage, which is nice. But they do have a cost. Ooh, ow, 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 ow. Oh, yeah, you can see where that room is appealing, having those guys, but yeah, it can really turn around on you quick if you tarry there too long, if you will. But yeah, so it pretty much just works like normal. Just toss it. But ooh, similar to the bow though, like I said, whenever you use the throwing knife, it does cost a rupee. I count it as an ammo, so. But we have enough rupees to buy a heart. which in theory you would likely have either by this point or by a point here very soon. Because going back to that other room, let's see, pull up the map. Going back to this room with the eye thing, going back to there, you can see that. Oh yeah, so the dark nuts, once you have the throwing knives, the dark nuts are made a lot easier. Because you can just repeatedly stun the dark nuts now, which is great. So that actually makes dealing with them far easier. But, like I said, you have to be mindful of how many rupees that you're spending. Because it's easy and super fast, you can throw the throwing knives very fast. But you only have so many rupees that you can really operate with, if you will. Ooh, they hit me, no. Got-y. So, we'll throw a throwing knife at Mr. Man here. Get the secret tone, and we get more rupees. I wanted to make sure that the player had plenty of rupees. Oh yeah, we have the key for this. Yeah, I was gonna say it. Why? Oh yeah, I forgot. I did set it to where the Dorias they are not affected by the throwing knives. So, ooh, speaking of which, I just got axed. That man there just axed me a question. But, what do you call them? But yeah, the Dorias, they are not affected by the throwing knives, unlike the dark nuts. So you have to sort of identify which enemies are better affected by what, and kind of roll with it. Speaking of which, I am having a horrible time with these dark nuts. Oh wait. Got-y. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Oh. Excuse me. There we go. There we go. Ooh, activate you, and run for it. Got-y. Ooh, missed. Got-y. Ah. Ah. There we go. Got-y. Now let's see. Ouch. I kind of do want to actually kill this thing because I need hearts. But it's a little risky because it's a little bit of a tricky room that we have here. Yeah, this is a more challenging room for sure, and for certain. For certain. Got-y. Oh. Alright, so we're back to full hearts, which is ideal. Ah, we have more of these dudes. I think we've got knives. Got-y. Go ahead and activate that again for no reason. Proceed back into here. We have the key. Ooh, excuse me. Ooh, do not want to get hit by the Doria again, because that hurts a lot. But yeah, the knives don't work on them. Like I said, if you can hit them in the diagonal, that's how you sort of deal with these guys really well. There you go. That'll open the shutter, but what we want to do is get the key, because we have the key. Open the door. Got you. Here. Alright, we'll run through here. Now this is a tricky room. This is definitely one of the more challenging rooms, but another thing that is exploitable in the old Zelda is the fact that you can hit enemies in the doorway. Oh, give me the heart. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that's another decent exploit that you kind of can learn for this room. Because the Stalfos, they're likely to show up, and you can just smack them. It's great. But yeah, you can see here, this is a good example of where the darkness actually does come into play. As you can't, like, you would, if you come into here normally, not knowing how the dark rooms work, you might think, oh, well, it's, what do you call them? It's maybe like water or something, right? Especially if you did go the other route and you already seen water, you would assume that it's probably water. But if you use the torch, you find out, ooh, that's the painful looking stuff. If I walk into it, ow, that hurts, and I don't want to hurt. Pain is my least favorite. Ooh. Check for the Gibdo. Ooh, has so much health. Gibdos are definitely tanky. Come on. There we go. But yeah, then an example where you can basically just exploit the corners. Ouch! Unless I walk right into him. My bad. Got it. So this is going to be a hard encounter here. Because we have 3 dark nuts and I have 1 heart. Ouch! Ah, they got me. They done got me. Alright. So back into it. We're almost done through the part that we have so far. Ouch. Ouch. Nope. Nope. There we go. There we go. Hey. I do need to remember that I have bombs. Because the bombs are an extremely good tool as well for most of the hard enemies, honestly. So, in theory, we should and would be using bombs for most of what we've done so far. Those guys do not like fire. They pretty much die when they have fire. As well as bombs. Among most things, honestly. There we go. Super easy to deal with. Nice, nice. And we've got all our hearts back. We are getting low on money, though. That's what happens when we over-rely on the throwing knives. While they are a very, very good tool, they are an expensive tool. Ow. Of course, that one style post didn't have to, had to poise through our hit. Let's deal with the Doria with the fire first. Ha. Then have a bomb. Here you go. There we go. But yeah, bombs are another effective way of dealing with certain types. So, as far as the player's perspective, it really is a thing of using the tools that you have, you know, available to you. If you have enough bombs, you can pretty easily clear the Dark Nut encounter up here. No, what's that? No, go away. Go away. Give those. I don't know if I give those. There we go. Dark Nut, come here. I've got something for you. Knife. Oh, knife. Knife. Oh, I had to walk right into that one. Oh, go away. Ha. There we go. So you hit him with the throwing knife and then boom jams! Boom! Okay, we'll switch back to that. Not the one that I wanted to hit, but I'll hit it. Got-y and got-y! Oh! And then I walk into the trap! No! Oh, my bad, my bad. Oof. Oh. No. Oh, I'm out of rupees. That's what it is. I was like, why are the throwing knives not working? And it's because I'm out of rupees. I'm absolutely out of rupees. But the thing is, the big thing for Mitchell is having this be difficult for him, while also remembering that this will be his first trek through an NES Zelda style game, right? That's going to be the big thing. And I feel like the big thing with this is just like the resource management, like knowing what you have and like what you'll need to defeat certain challenges, right? Like that's going to be the big challenge, I would say. It's just like resource management. Like, oh, am I gonna have enough bombs to defeat the dark nuts in that one room? Or am I gonna have enough rupees so I can throw the knives at them to stun them? Or things like that. There's so many! Keep swinging! Ow, 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 ow. Go away, go away, go away. Go away, go away, go away. Got it, got it, got it. Ah! Okay, there we go. Ah, there we go. Nice. So we got those. There we go. Don't need to hit the secret anymore. Oh. Immediately into the action. Oh, go away, go away, go away. Go away, go away. Go. Okay. Come on. Go away, go away, go away. Okay, there. Don't really need to fight you. We'll let you go about your business. And we'll fight a couple of these little guys, because they're in my way. A couple of Stalfos. Excuse me. Oh, and then I walk in. Oh no! No, stop walking! Stop walking into them! Excuse me, excuse me. Good, no good dude. What we like to see. Ooh, excuse me, excuse me. Don't hit me in the water, please. Okay. Now is our time to deal with these guys. So we'll hit him with a bomb. Ha! And this should be enough to finish him. There we go. We'll grab ourselves a key. And that, yeah. And that will be the end of what we have so far. Which essentially means that we need to, what do you call them here? We'll go ahead. Jump back in. This will be a fresh save. Let's kind of have you chill here while we go back to doing some editing. Doing some Yoguda edits. So we pretty much left off here. I want to... Well, why don't we build it... Generally with these, I like to build almost in reverse. Where you have, like, or in this... What I did with these challenge rooms, more or less. I built the challenge room and then built back to, you know, back through the dungeon. And I'll probably do the same here with the boss. Keeping with classic Zelda, I'll probably just have an Aquamentus. That's a pretty decent, like, first boss, you know. It's pretty straightforward and, like, gets the point across without being, like, too hard. For the Aquamentus, I was thinking of, what do you call them? I was thinking of adding something else to supplement it a little bit. What would that be, though? Actually, you know what? Actually... Oh, no, I didn't save it. Actually, what I might do... yeah, we'll have this as the dungeon boss. First enemy is the ringleader, that's fine. Enemy's item, because we will have, as a reward, we'll have a heart piece. So because that's, or a heart container. Sorry. We will have a heart container in this room when we defeat the boss, which means something. But now what we'll want to do now, so we have that there. I don't remember if I finished. I started spriting up a enemy, and I don't remember if I finished. Because I was going to make an enemy that's similar to the, what do you call them, the Wizrobe. Like an easier Wizrobe. Because the Wizrobes at this point would almost be too difficult, I would think. If that makes sense. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, I didn't finish spriting it. But yeah, it's like a little, it's basically a, what do you call them? It's basically like a lesser Wizrobe, if you will. But that's something I've started. I haven't finished it yet. I was using the Gibdo tiles as a example of like what it, you know, the different poses and such, as far as, you know, how they face and all. But that's something I'll have to finish. I might actually, I'll probably finish editing the sprites for this, and then I'll have a couple of those in with this boss maybe. But what we'll want to do now, I don't want it to be just an empty room. We'll go back. I want to grab our tile. Go over here. Do we want to do just like a classic sort of Zelda bit where it's like basically like a little boss chamber? Yeah, let's just do like just a simple boss chamber here. The player can either approach from this angle or this angle. There'll only be one boss key to be able to access it, so whichever door they choose to go in first, that's the door that they always have to approach from. I feel like that'd just be, and again, like sort of keeping in mind with the theme of like there's different routes you can take, and by doing one you might intentionally or unintentionally limit which other route you can take. You know, that's going to be sort of a big thing, especially going back to sort of how I want to lay out this world, if you will. You basically are going to have, you know, a center hub and dungeons in a couple different regions that, you know, you can optionally go to whichever one you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the items required to beat it. Similar to, you know, the original NES. You know, you could essentially travel the entire world, but you might get there and find out that you don't have the right item. Granted, for our case here, like I would prompt, I would have certain prompts to where you could sort of identify, right? You could sort of identify what you need to complete a certain area. Like, there might be an instance where you go into a cave or something, right? And the NPC says, gonna need a raft. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, not putting it quite like that, but similar. It could be something similar along those lines, where it's like, you know, they will, like, you know, you'll basically be in this area, but they'll reference an item or something, and say, I've heard that that item is, you know, rumored to be here. You know what I mean? So before you actually get too far into it, right, like, there will be some indication that you'll need that item. For example, the raft and things like that, you'll absolutely need that for the water area here, right? You know, that could be located somewhere else. Or maybe that could be part of the rotating stock that's back in town. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you pretty much end up with, you know, you pretty much end up with an open world that's still linear enough to where you kind of have to explore it, if that makes sense. Like, you could just beeline it straight to each dungeon, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have what you need to complete it. So, that's pretty much kind of how I'm thinking of laying this out. As far as that goes, you'll essentially have, you know, the open world, if you will, but there are certain things that you have to do within that open world before you can really do the open world, if that makes sense. Again, sort of going back to sort of the Dark Souls idea, where it's like, you can go a couple of different routes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right route, or the preferred route. You can essentially end up, you know, going through Blight Town, you know, which is considerably harder, in theory, than the Undead Burg, right? Like, you'd essentially, unintentionally or intentionally, you know, go to the harder area, you know, without necessarily realizing it at the time. Outside of, oh, this is just way too hard, I'm just clearly doing something wrong, you know. And that's going to be another bit, it's just like the player judgment. And again, sort of going back to this, you know, staying on topic here. You essentially end up with player choice. It's like, oh, is it going to be easier to approach the boss from this room or this room? Not that it really makes much difference, honestly, in this case. Aquamentus is pretty easy in either case, so shouldn't have to worry about it too much, I don't think. But, yeah, I think I'll add a couple of those other little dudes in here. They'll be really easy. Basically similar to the Wizrobe, but just way easier. But yeah, we'll have that as that. Why don't we actually, let me think. I'll need to throw, no, that's not what I want. I want a combo. We want enemy combo. Enemy 0. Hey, that's not what we want. No, it actually is. Never mind. I lied. That is exactly what we want. It's just I didn't want to put it there. I wanted to do... oh, garbage. I clicked away from it again. Yes, please. There. That will guarantee that Aquamentus spawns on one of those tiles, facing left, which is where we want him to be, because then he can fight Link. Or, in our case, Mr. Coop. Yes. Yeah, the Legend of Coop. Alright, well why don't we just straight up get killed here, and then we can go to the boss and make sure that it seems to work alright. Go to retry. We'll go ahead and activate this, which should reload the whole dungeon. For the sake of simplicity, and because we can, I'm going to cheat. Yes, please. I would love to cheat, thank you. I would love it to where I can walk through walls, thank you. I will be walking through walls now. Don't mind me. Oh, slowly but surely walking my way around here. Oh, what we got, what we got. Alright, so this will be where the boss shows up. Aquamentus will show up. We'll start blasting at stuff. Like I said, I'm thinking of probably having a couple other little guys in here, like the little Wizrobe dudes. I feel like that'll add to the challenge a good bit. Because Aquamentus just by himself in this room is kinda... I mean, it's still difficult, right? It's still difficult, but not exactly super uber difficult. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. One downside, though, is that you can get behind him at certain points. But maybe that's not actually a problem. Maybe that's fun. Alright, so we'll go to retry. And we'll just hit this for the sake of being in here. Boom, boom, boom. Alright. Oh, goodness. It's getting a little late. No problem, I have to be calling it pretty soon. Let's go ahead and just like finish this bit of the dungeon real quick first, because we are essentially to the end now. So we'll go ahead and we want that to be a wall, of course. Have that door open. We want this room to be our Triforce room. Where that? Oh, I forgot. Is there not? I don't think there's a specific room for the Triforce now. I think it's just a special item. Alright. Yeah, I think it's special item, right? No, it's been a bit since I've had to change that. Oh, we want Triforce. We want Triforce Fragment. That is what the special item is in this room. Oh, you know what? Nah, I don't know if we want to do it that way. We'll just do... Nah, we'll do it this way instead. We'll have not that. We'll manually select our Triforce. And we'll put it somewhere in this room. We'll just put it dead center in the room. Yeah, it can just be dead center, that's fine. Screen data. Actually, I think it's actually, I think Triforce room is maybe part of the screen data. Hold up item. Oh, maybe it's not. I might be mistook. I am definitely mistook. But this should work. So we'll leave that as is. We'll go back, go ahead and select this, and from there, we'll make it look nice. Not quite decided what we want to do yet as far as how to make it look. Oh, unless let's select this, have it be big C for Coop. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, we actually have room to work here. Unless. Let's move this further to the north. Grab this. C. Oh, we're not gonna really be able to pull off a G though. Nah. We could still do two big C's. Actually, let's do. Yeah, let's do this instead. We'll have CC. We'll have our fragment. Where do we want to put that? Middle? Nah, you know what? I think that we just want to keep it like dungeon. Yeah, we'll just keep it nice and dungeony here. Actually, you know what? For the idea that you acquire that and then leave the dungeon, we'll do it like that. Because it being here, the player has to pick it up. So essentially, they won't be able to operate that door, nor can they really do that anyway, considering there's no other area to the north any further. So we'll do that. I think that'll look nice. What else do we want to add to this? Unless we just want to do some just like decorative tile. We could do that. Oh, you know what? Yeah, we could do some decorative tile where it's like. Yeah, we could do. We could do a big C. Yeah, we could do something like that. Oh, I'm always indecisive when it comes to this thing. When it comes to stuff like this, I am always indecisive. Unless we just do something like this. Actually, replace all. Have it like this. Unless, I was thinking about changing that. I don't think I would want to do that in there. Nah, that'll work. That'll work just as well. That'll work good. Yeah, why overcomplicate it? Yeah, we'll leave it just like so. So you'll beat that, walk into here, secret and or the item's already there and everything. Hold up item. There is an indicator to indicate which room's the drug force room. Is that in the D map itself, maybe? Flags. Oh. I don't recall. I think that you can probably do without that. Okay. Well, let's see. So we have the Aquamentus. One other puzzle I want to do another push puzzle, but a more difficult push puzzle. Probably do that. Let's do that push puzzle in this room. We'll essentially end up with where the blocks at? Oh, there's the block. Yeah. I'm thinking we want to do like a finish the pattern kind of puzzle, you know what I mean? Where it's like you have it where you have the blocks in a certain pattern, but one of them is like thrown off, you know? So we'll have it like this. Then we want secret combo. That's the one. Let's see. Can we select you? Secret combos. We want. Do we want a secret combo for that? I think so. Yeah, I think we'll do. Where's our current set here? Here we go. We'll want that to be your normal tile. We'll want to go to our combo flag. We will have a push block 4-way. We'll have you be the push block, and then we will have a flag. We want the flag to be, where is it? Pretty sure it's block, trigger. Push block, trigger. Push block. Block trigger. That's what we want. Block trigger. So when you push the block up to that location, it will trigger the secret. And the secret for this room. Let's do this first. We do want it to be enemy secret. We are going to have a couple of just throwaway enemies in this room. Thinking maybe have some gorillas or whatever. Not Oma. We'll have a couple of gorillas. That'll be a nice little challenge. Plus, you know, we don't want to put too many enemies in this. You know what I mean? Let's see. So that should work just like that. Oh. Let's see, for the sake of testing, let's go ahead and just sword. Yeah, for the sake of testing, let's just go ahead. Give ourselves the wooden sword from the start. We will go and test this room here. Oh, let's see. Enemy secret. You know what? Maybe we. Yeah, enemy secret, because we don't want them to be able to push the block until after that. Room type. This room should actually be special item, I think. We'll have special item. We want it to be key. We want it to be the boss key. Or a normal key. Now we want the boss key. So special item. Let me think. Did I do all of that correctly, I think? Oh, I don't remember. I'm thinking that that should be correct, though. Okay, let's go ahead and get killed. Okay, so we got that. Let's go restart, retry. Activate this. Yeah, it's a temp. Temporary. Let's go ahead and put 4 codes enabled. We want to do walk through walls. Thank you. Oh, yeah. I already have a sword. Ooh, dark room. Very spooky. Very, very spooky. I'll walk out of bounds real quick. This happens to be quicker. Yep. And it still maps it. Perfect. Okay, moving in here. It's a lot easier to play this when you don't have to take damage. Okay, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, they have throwing knives too. I'll have to change their AI to where their throwing knives play by our rules. To where they don't return to them. But as compensation for that, I might up the speed that they're able to throw them. Oh, walk through walls. Clock off. Oh, excuse me. Got Okay. Okay. I have done something wrong. Oh, you know what? I think there's a separate flag. There's a separate flag for, what do you call them here? There's a separate flag for push any. Or push multiple, maybe. Oh, let's see. Block trigger, we do want that. Push block 4-way once, no. 4-way mini. No, we only need up mini. Let's replace that. Special item boss key. We will do there's a sound effect one for secrets. No. Okay, so enemy secret. Let's leave that all. Flash shutter, all triggers. Okay. Alright, well, I'll just try that again. Let's save it first. And yeah, if we do block trigger, I think. I'm trying to think. There aren't any other flags as far as item. I don't think that we need to use. Trigger, self-only, secret enough. Dive item, no. No. That's good. Oh. Go ahead and restart. Reset. Alright. Go ahead and run it. No, it's a temporary bit. Alright, so we do that. I'm going to enter code 4 because I do not want to have to run back there. We want quick movement. We want walk through walls. Oh, it's so fast. So fast. So fast. Just imagine playing the game actually like this. And this is Dragon Ball Z level stuff right here. Like, you can attack so fast that there's not even like a sword animation to it. I don't know if I've actually played around with fast movement too much. Yeah, this is the way to play. And even with fast movement, these Dark Nuts are being a pain. Okay, so we've got that now. We'll turn these off, turn that off. We don't want quick movement. No. Go back to the game, please. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Hey, look at this dude. Doesn't even know how bombs work. So, more level. Okay, so there is a thing that I forgot that I need to do in order to trigger the item drop. Special item, boss key, tools. Oh, I always forget if it's a trigger or what. One thing that we can add, we don't want them to be able to push the block any further north, so we'll add a block, if you will. We'll do that. It's not secret combos, no. Secret combos is when you basically change one block to another. It nearly has to be here then. This will trigger raft path, raft branch, no. Secret tunnel. Unless it's counting the item drop as no, that can't be. Oh, now I need to go and remove those. Am I just like forgetting how to do it? I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like almost too tired. Like, I might just have to like call it a night pretty soon. I'm getting a little tired myself. Oh goodness. Yeah, well, how do we go about having the block be the trigger for the item? Trigger, self only, no. General purpose, no. Oh, I outright don't remember, oddly enough. Starting to get to the point where I'm too tired to figure this out. But, anyway, we'll come back to that. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Into SO1. Yeah, we'll come back to that one. So we want the boss key to be there. We'll give the player... no, the player doesn't really need another bomb drop through there. I want to have them encounter the, what are they called? Not gorillas. We'll have the gorillas in that other room. We want to have them fight a few moblins. Moblins are another fairly common type of enemy. So we'll have a few moblins in this room. Mimics. Moblin. Yeah, we have a moblin in there, sure. Yeah. So basically, the way, as far as the enemies design or where their placements go, you basically have a few rooms that have guards, and then you have a few enemies that are like more just like natural enemies. So these are guard enemies, or natural enemies, more guard enemies. I feel like this last bit, like stretch of dungeon, should be more like guard, like more guard type enemies. So we maybe have some more moblins in this room. Maybe have a few of those, plus maybe a few. What do you call them? Gorillas. A couple of gorillas in this room with those guys. Since they just fought the Dark Nut there, I kind of want to do another rest bit, maybe, where we have the, oh, what did I call them? Did I call them Shroomy? Yeah, Shroomy. Have a couple of Shroomies in here in this room. Maybe just one Shroomy. We have one Shroomy, and then we can do some, oh, what do we want to do with the Shroomy? What would be good to go with that? Oh, let me just do some. Nah, I don't see Stalfos and Shroomies hanging out in the same room. Oh, you know what? I forgot about these. Yeah, we have a rope in here. Sure. And we do a couple of these. And maybe we can do another, like, sort of trap scenario where we have the spikes, maybe. And we'd have this wall here lined with spikes, and then have you could do like the moving floor. So if you go too far to the south there, plus theoretically it fits with the previous design because you have the other floor moving here. So it's almost like this room is like a continuation to this one. Actually, you know what? It might be the big dom, but what if we actually did that? Huh. Now I'm debating. You know what? I'm kinda tempted. It would basically end up being, ooh, let me get back to the right color palette here. Oh, is this counting? It's because okay, it's counting it as a different thing. What we really need to do is basically, ooh, that's beautiful. That is not what we want at all. Oh, geez. I forget why it's doing this. I'm getting too tired to be able to actually justify why it's doing that. Oh, goodness. Yeah, what's the trigger for the to? I'm minorly confused. Okay, that's what we want, eh? This is what we want here. Yeah. That's actually got me really confused now. Well, can we just copy you then? And no, not even that worked. What's the... Oh. Because it's not considered part of this D map? That wouldn't make sense. Would it? Oh, because you could have hidden rooms. Huh. Now I'm getting confused. What I'm getting. Oh goodness. Screen data. No. Item. I don't think that that's what we want. Apply template to all. I don't think is what we want there. Although maybe we do actually. If not, then I'll just cancel out. Apply template. Apply. No. Okay, because that's gonna, yeah. Oh, maybe just as simple as just changing palette. No, we don't want the overworld, we want dungeon level 1. Oh, okay, that's literally it. Would it make me do that for every one of these though? I guess since it wasn't part of the original, what do you call them? The original layout that I put. Overworld. Palette, do we want level 1? Palette, do we want level 1? And palette, we want level 1. Okay, so we'll have, whoa, hold up. What did I do? Oh, no, I meant to do that. This here, it's going to be this room as well. We basically want select this, everything else. It's going to be blank until I decide what to do as far as the design for this. And replace all. Alright, so what width do we have for this? We have this here. Basically, continue up. Yips! I forgot that's what that did. That is not what I was wanting to do. My bad. There we go. But to actually go up this route, it's going to be very hard. So we're going to add a bunch of stuff that basically guarantees that you'll die. We don't necessarily want the player to go this route. But if the player does somehow manage to survive, then they've effectively skipped a majority of the challenge rooms and can go like straight to the boss if they wanted. So I feel like that would be a pretty interesting bit. It gives them the option to potentially skip portions of the dungeon, if you will. So we'll add this, we'll add this, we'll add this. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. Gotti. If I were playing it smart and not half asleep, I would have just drawn a box and just filled. But I am far too tired to come up with a strategy like that until post facto. So, you get what you get. You get what you get. We'll do that. I feel like that's fair. We'll do this. That will cut across. And this would basically be where that torrent starts that continues through the rest of the dungeon. I'm pretty big when it comes to like consistency factors like that. Like I enjoy consistency factors like that. Where it's like we want to draw tool vibe. Oh no, I did the wrong one. We want to do this one. Well, for that matter, we could have just selected this one. That's a bit bigger brain move to do. Select that. Draw. Or, what happened? Draw. Not. Are these tile? Oh. Because they did the big dumb and didn't assemble that back to back. Then we'll have to do. Oh, bleh. Nobody likes doing it this way. Oh, garbage, and now I messed those ones up. No. Alright, well, let's go block by block. Boop, and boop, and boop. We'll do boop, and boop, and boop, and boop. We'll then do whoop, boop, and boop, and boop, and boop. And then finally we'll do the corner, boop, and boop, and boop, and boop. Let's go ahead, do this, and slowly but surely fill out everything here. Actually, you know what? We could pull a big brain. Wrist. You. Why did you select it this way? No. That is also not it. Which C set is this darn thing operating off of here? There we go, C set 2, okay. Looks like C set 2 anyway. Oh yeah, I should have looked. I am getting far too tired to keep that up. Okay, so we'll do... What do this? What I'm gonna do. Have a wall there. Have that like that. Have that like that. Okay. So we'll want to select you. Have boom. And we'll have boom. I widen it actually for that. Oh no, that's how I did it. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine as is. Yeah, we'll actually have this up here wider for the sake of perceived ease. Except it's not. It's definitely not. Okay, so we got this, we got that, we got that. now we can. One thing that I wish that they did implement were a way to like copy sections of dungeons. You know what I mean? Like be able to copy the wall bits and things like that. You know what I mean? Because like then I could just like select this whole like little group right here. You know what I mean? And then just copy the whole bit. But alas, that is not the case. Much the sad. So we'll just take it bit by bit here. Slowly but surely filling out our little dungeon bit here. Okay, why don't we go ahead and we can select our door set here. We want to move down to wall there, wall there. Okay, that's good, that's good. We'll do that for the rest as well. One there, one there. Alright. And once we finish this little bit here, I'm probably gonna have to call it a night because I am getting a little tired. A wee bit tired I am to be getting. And I am not a fan of being tired. I like to be sleeps. But we have made some pretty decent progress on tonight's dungeon here. Didn't make as much progress as I was hoping to. That being said, we did have the power blip, and also I spent more time than I probably should just explaining just game mechanics and how, what do you call them? How, I don't know, just game design in general. Yeah, I felt like I spent a good while on just game design, just as, you know, sort of the theory of game design, if you will. Which is actually nice. Like, I don't know. I like talking about game design and such. Like, it's cool to see games that like get game design right. I feel like that's one of the like especially when it comes to like Dark Souls like games, like FromSoft likes, is they do it right, but it just there's something just by design that they miss that is like essential to the FromSoft series, you know what I mean? Whether it be like the way that the difficulty plays, you know? Because Dark Souls, it's like it's difficult, but the difficulty stems more from just how the enemies interact with you and how you interact with them. And how that is affected by the environment, you know what I mean? Because, you know, most of the enemies are essentially easy if you think about it. I mean, you know, if you took enough time, you could pretty much just kill any enemy with just a simple bow and wooden arrows. But the difficulty of it is you wanting to just be better at it, if you will. Random? I don't know. Heard something outside. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just game dev theory is just cool. like to talk about that kind of stuff. Oh no, we do want this. One moment. I'm back. Hello. Thought something was outside, but guess not. Oh. Well, let's see. Let's just go ahead and get this done. Yeah, I'd like to get this little corridor done before I call it a night. But, you know, I feel like there's been some pretty good progress there. We got basically the first dungeon done, and I'll call that pretty good. Yeah, sorry if this hasn't been as entertaining a stream, if you will, compared to some of our other ones, especially our group ones. Obviously, our group ones are just amazing, but you know, I figured this stream would be more of a informative thing as opposed to like an entertainment thing. More a tutorial, if you will, or just like a general just game dev discussion, as opposed to like more just haha funnies. You know, I might do that eventually. I'm half tempted if I do a solo stream like next week or whatever, maybe do just like Cat Quest or something, just like goofy, you know? Like I feel like that would be kind of funny. So I have been debating whether to maybe do that like next week or something if I have a chance. Big thing with me when it comes to like stream time and stuff like that is just like some work. Like work just takes so much of my time that I unfortunately don't have much time. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, you know, even to like work on this, it's like I've made so little progress on this simply because it's like not really taking the time to really work on it. You know what I mean? That being said, you know, if I dedicate time like this where, you know, I wouldn't say multitask, but essentially multitask, right? Like, it's like, oh, I'm streaming, you know, putting out content and supporting the channel and whatnot, but also working on something that's also directly for the channel. And speaking of the channel and everything, Mitchell and I did discuss, and we have some plans in order as far as like getting the best ofs and stuff done. So I'm looking forward to getting those worked up and onto YouTube in a much more timely fashion. That will be wonderful to be able to get those up, because that's some of our favorite parts have been the best ofs. Like we still, even just like the one best of that we did for the Dark Souls episode 2, like we still just like go back and just watch that, and it's great. But how much better would it be if we could do that with just like the whole series? You know what I mean? So that's something that we had discussed, and we're going to try to push those out in a more timely fashion. You know, the big thing is it's just time, unfortunately. Just time is just kind of a limited thing, really. So it's just like, we'll have this be water. You know what? We'll have that be water, and we'll have the shooting statues like all the way up through this area. Because we don't really, this is not the way that Mr. Coops here is supposed to travel, if that makes sense. Like, this is not the way he's supposed to go. So we want to make it as difficult, within reason, as possible. We want him to still have a chance to get up through it, but at what cost, if you will. Oh, and that's Mitchell. Heyo. Heyo. Let's see. I'm a cut. Alright, 2 webcam. Hide the evidence. Oh, hide the evidence. Hide the evidence.
Oh, there's evidence.
Oh, the evidence. Oh, did you see my diagrams earlier?
Yeah, I did.
That's some art right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, hold up. Yeah, that's some art right there. That's.
That one up top looks angry.
Yeah, I was going to say all of my diagrams ended up looking like faces by the end of it, dude.
I was gonna say.
You're welcome to hop on. I'm getting ready to close, actually. So.
Oh well.
I was half asleep since we're trying to wrap up. So.
Well, I actually have to.
What?
I have to perform some after work duties.
I don't know about all that. Yeah, I don't know about that. All right, well, it's been good. Thanks for whoever happened to jump in. Again, sorry that it wasn't necessarily as entertaining as it was more just like informative / like, I don't know, just general discussion. It's definitely not as fun as our typical Dark Souls or some of Mitchell's solos, but I don't know, just being able to talk just game dev and sort of game design, just fun, honestly. Plus, you know, hey, working on the thing here, we made good progress. The first dungeon's more or less done, either done or we know what to do with it. So I feel like that's accomplishment. That's good. But guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. As far as next week, I know I put on the calendar that we might do another stream or something as far as like a solo thing. That I'd probably do something more entertaining for next time, honestly. Well, you know, this is fun. I actually really enjoy this. I know it's not exactly everybody's cup of tea, if you will. You know, it is more of like oh, he's talking about game design, and that's either something I like or don't like. You know, it's like, you know, some people would prefer to just be like, oh, I would just want to play the game, as opposed to talking about how the game was made and sort of the ideas behind certain mechanics, you know. You know, I personally love that kind of stuff, but not everybody's cup of tea, so I do understand that. And, you know, we might end up doing something a little different for next week, depending. If it turns out that people actually like this, then I don't know, I might be back. Might be back for another solo here, but until then, sorry, I'm just like still modifying stuff off camera, my bad. But yeah, until then, yeah, I hope everything goes good for you, and I guess signing off. Yep, Bazo. Bazo. It's like a normal bye, but with the zo at the end. That's exactly how it works.